Welcome to Heroes and Droids, your guide to movies and TV shows about superheroes, sci-fi, Disney in action, from Marvel, DC, from Star Wars, Star Trek, from James Bond to the Fast and Furious. We will review theatrical films and streaming delights you care about most, and we are happy to begin our review of the Moon Knight series streaming on Disney Plus with, naturally, episode 1. So this is going to be fun. We've been looking forward to this, and it's the, I guess, of the Midnight Suns is all. There's all kinds of things that are kind of hidden in promises of this. We'll see where it goes. But I'm your host, Doc Rotten, and joining me tonight are my fellow co-hosts. Starting off with Christopher Slattery. He is called the Slattman. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you, Doc?
I'm doing good. So let's start this out. Moon Knight is not the highest profile Marvel character. People know him, and people also know him as maybe Marvel's Batman, which they worked very hard to get away from here. But my question is, how familiar are you with the Moon Knight character?
Fairly. And it's funny that you say Marvel's Batman, because I distinctly remember when I was 10, 11, maybe 12, you yourself told me, Moon Knight, here, read this. It's Marvel's version of Batman.
I probably did, because he is, but with a twist, a big, huge twist.
Yeah. And so I kind of alluded to, I've kind of been off and on reading Moon Knight. I've read a run here, a run there, but not dedicated for 20 years now almost. So yeah, I enjoy the character, but I'm not as enthusiastic about the character as I am with say Spider-Man, who is my favorite. So
there you go. There might be a day when Moon Knight and Spider-Man meet up. It can happen. It'll be a long.
It happened in Ultimate Comics.
It happens a lot, but we'll get there. All right. Also joining us is award-winning filmmaker Christopher G. Moore. How you doing, sir?
I'm bloody knackered, you nutter.
Perfect.
I'm doing well. I'm tapping into my different identities.
Yes, your DIDs. You're getting into your Stephen Grant. Now, Stephen Grant, interesting enough, is in the comics is very rich. He's more Bruce Wayne. And
he's more Bruce Wayne. People have always considered Moon Knight to be the Batman of the Marvel universe. Yeah, but they've definitely taken that into a different direction with this new series. Yeah. At least for now. So I'll ask you the same question I asked Chris. What's your background with this character? I have no background whatsoever.
All right, that's very good. Very good. I will start off saying that I didn't read his original appearance in Werewolf by Night, but I read his follow-up appearances in both Werewolf by Night and Marvel Spotlight when he started going kind of solo, and I've been following him ever since. I like the character, but his character's history is really strange as they try to tweak and turn the character and try to make it happen. But the fascinating thing about the character is the multiple personalities, what we now call DID,
dissociative identity disorder.
Thank you, sir. And I think they captured that really well. So we'll get into that. So I am a huge fan of this character and have been eagerly awaiting this. So it's going to be interesting to have this discussion. But what we're going to do tonight is we're going to start off giving our first impression. That will be spoiler-free. And then we're going to dive into our spoilers and Easter eggs, right, Christopher? And then we'll wrap things up with our final thoughts, our score at 1 to 5, and our favorite scene. And of course, we hope you enjoyed not only this review, but many others that we have on the site. And if you want to help us out, easy and free to do, or free and easy to do, whichever way you want to put that. English, it should be easy. hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, share with us, and we'll be grateful. And of course, we want to hear your comments down below. Let's look at the card, folks. Moon Knight, episode 1, streamed March 30th. 2022 on Disney Plus. It was called The Goldfish Problem. The director is Mohamed Diab. It also lists Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead, but they direct future episodes. They don't direct this one. So I figured that out after I put him in the card. But hey, written by Jeremy Slater. Based on characters created by Doug Moench and Don Perlin. The cast includes Oscar Isaac, Ethan Hawke, F. Murray Abraham, Karim El Hakim, Lucy Thackeray, Saffron, Hocking, and Shaun Scott. Synopsis: Stephen Grant learns that he may be a superhero, but may also share a body with a ruthless mercenary. That's pretty accurate, wouldn't you say? All right, let's find out what our first impressions are. Slattman, start us off.
Yeah, so I want to say that they do a very good job of kind of capturing the essence of Moon Knight and the essence of what makes him special on film. And I was kind of skeptical that they would be able to pull it off as well as they did, because something with dissociative identity disorder is very difficult to portray well. But luckily, the team behind Moon Knight has some good writers that were able to write it in a way that's easy to understand, as well as casting Oscar Isaac, who does an amazing job portraying the two identities that we get in this episode.
Yes.
Yeah, like it does a very good job of portraying those, and not just from a voice, but also from a physicality, from a mannerisms, like and he does a very good job of doing that, and I'm very happy with the direction that they went. I will say that some of the jokes, I don't think the MCUism jokes, they didn't really land as well when they were talking about kind of referencing the DID that our main character has. But outside of that, I really liked it. I thought the villain was portrayed well. It has it menacing, but also well acted. And yeah, I thought, Oscar Isaac was very good in this too. I think that's about all I can say without spoilers, because there's a lot more I want to talk about.
Yeah, just say he does the best facial acting ever. We'll just put it that way. One eye acts. It's really crazy. Christopher G. Moore, sir, what was your first impression of Moon Knight? Episode 1.
Well, I think some of the people who created it, they said it's almost like Indiana Jones meets Fight Club, and that's basically
it is.
And it gets more into, I guess, the Indiana Jones elements as we get into it. But I really enjoyed it. I think it's a really interesting show. I mean, I've heard there's different opinions on this show. Some people like it, some people don't. So it's definitely may not be some people's cup of tea, just because of how it represents the DID aspect of it. Because you actually when people have that disorder, you're going between different personalities, and you wake up and like, how did I get here? In the same way that, if you sleepwalk or whatever, and you're like, how did I get into the kitchen? So you have those moments where it goes between things. And so there's certain things, I think the only thing kind of annoyed me, it's like, I wanted to see what happened.
I know. I hope we do.
Like, right? I want to see what happened when a fight happens and you see the aftermath. It's like, what? But I think Oscar Isaac does a really amazing job with his physicality and his acting in scenes. Without giving anything away, there's a dinner scene that's heartbreaking.
Yes,
and it's one long shot of him acting and responding. So I think he's definitely acting up a storm. I think Ethan Hawke's definitely turning out to be really cool evil character that you see that right from the very beginning. He's a little bit out there. And there's some really kind of fun action scenes that feel very Indiana Jonesy. If Indiana Jones didn't know what the hell he was doing. And so I think that's what adds to the fun element of that, you know, and it almost has that Venom aspect of it too, because he hears a voice, and it kind of reminds me of Venom, like, except if Venom was just saying insults to you, like, why are you doing this or that? But yeah, overall, I found it to be very entertaining. I think my only critique, there's a few spots that the special effects seem a little bit off. You know, for the first time, I actually noticed like the CGI cape, and that bothered me. So I think that's the only thing that I kind of found to be a little bit off. But for the most part, I think at the same time, it's like you're thrust into it, and you don't really know. I don't really know where this is going, so I'm kind of excited. So I don't know what to expect, especially I've never really read any of the comics, other than just people always comparing him to saying he's the Batman of the MCU. But yeah, I'm really entertained by this first episode. It makes me kind of excited to see where we go from here. You know, I guess I'm just like, I want to see the other alternate personalities. I want to see more of that, the fighting and stuff, because we don't get to see a lot of the real action part until the very end. So, right. But yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yep. Well, we finally get. I mean, they had to give us Moon Knight, and we'll spoil that. You do get a shot of Moon Knight at the end of this, and it's really good, except for maybe the cape, like you said. Yeah. So this character was going to be a challenge to portray for the reasons that we all said, but I think that Christopher revealed that, you know, we basically stay with Stephen Grant right there. So there's Stephen Grant. Let's see, I had it up here a second ago. There's Stephen Grant. There's Marc Spector. Marc Spector is, well, we won't get into that. There's Marc Spector, Stephen Grant. There's also Jake Lockley, which I don't even know if we're going to get a reference to him in this series. And then Mr. Knight. And I have a feeling Mr. Knight's coming soon. Spoilers. But so there's multiple personalities. Of course, there's Khonshu as well, which is the Egyptian spirit that is giving his moon powers, if you will. And we get to see him in all his glory. And they actually absolutely realize this character. And it's voiced by Ephraim Abraham. And,
yeah.
Oh my gosh, it really, really good. And just the way the idiot's in charge. It's just great dialogue with him. I really love the aspect of this, and it does introduce you to the character and to these the whole situation without a whole lot of top-heavy, burdensome exposition. I mean, there is exposition, but it feels like we're just following this character as he's starting to awaken to these, you know, this other aspect of his life. He knows about it, and we are introduced to him knowing about it. So I really enjoyed this as a setup episode. I thought the direction was really strong. When there was action, it was really interesting. Because there's a huge action scene that there's a chase scene, and it's really unique and interesting how this chase scene plays out, and it's kind of fun in the way it plays out. And then of course we finally get the reveal, and that was really cool. We need more. It kind of leaves you wanting more, and I could see where some people might be like, we didn't get enough, and I think we did. For a first episode. I think we did. I really enjoyed this. It was going to be a tough character from the onset, and I think they handled it perfectly. Realizing it for live action. The costume is a little different, but that's okay. The characters are a little different, but that's okay, because they have to be, right? All the characters have been altered or adapted, if you will. And you also got to keep in mind, this one doesn't rely on the other MCU. Even though it's in the MCU, this one's totally unique, totally new. It's not, a B character from one of the other movies getting a spotlight or something like that, right? It is a brand spanking new one. I mean, we're going to get more. Miss Marvel is also going to be like that, but you got to keep that in mind. This is actually a fairly big jump for Marvel, and they succeed. So let's get into some spoilers. Starting off with, Sir Christopher, let's do some Easter eggs.
Okay, here we go. Well, I think one of the fun elements of this first episode is the needle drops. We get the opening song is Bob Dylan's "Every Grain of Sand," which was actually a song he created when he became a born again Christian, which kind of ties into this, religious sort of cult leader played by Ethan Hawke's character. We also have a song called "Man Without Love," which is by Engelbert Humperdinck, which is about a lonely guy, which ties into Oscar Isaac's character. And then also, I think one of my favorite scenes is an action scene set to "Wake Me Up Before You Go," which worked really well in Zoolander, but it worked really well here as well, with this big action scene where he's driving an cupcake truck.
A cupcake delivery truck, yes, full of cupcakes.
Getting pursued by baddies that you would normally see like in a James Bond film or something. So some really, really cool uses of music throughout this episode. Also, if you pay attention, the museum sells many of the same postcards that he gets from his mom.
Yeah.
So I guess we're going to find out that maybe he's sending postcards to himself. Also, if you pay attention, there's one scene where he's in the museum and he walks by a wall and there's a QR code that if you take a picture or you figure out that QR, you scan that code, it'll give you an episode of, I think, Werewolf by Night, or I can't remember the name of it, but you actually can download and read a comic book for.
Oh, really? Werewolf by Night? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's the first one.
Let's see. Of course, we get. I think one of the fun things they've done with the promotion of this is the little promotional pictures. They actually had a promotional picture for the, like when they always have the character pictures. They had a picture of the fish. Called Gus the fish, and if you pay attention to his aquarium, it has Egyptian artifacts linked to the afterlife all in the bottom of the aquarium. So
an obelisk and
and if you know the story, that's got a lot of meaning to it. That's the reason he's in all the trauma that he's in that's caused him to have his DID disorder. Let's see. Of course, we get the villain of Arthur Harrow, which actually in the comics was a German scientist who continued experiments after Auschwitz, and he studied pain theory, which kind of ties into this character now who's putting glass in his shoes, and using the pain to go along with his, his craziness. Cause he's probably
more of a cult leader in here, but
well, very much. Well, he supposedly based it on, what was the guy that the cult, and they died in the cult when they tried to
Jim Jones,
not Jim Jones, David.
Oh, the one from Waco.
Yeah, he actually based his character on David Koresh, and he's actually the one that came up with the idea of putting glass in his shoes. Ethan Hawke came up with that idea. That wasn't originally in the script. Let's see. The stash spot where he finds the phone and keys, it's shaped like a pyramid.
Yes, I noticed that. Yeah.
Also, that line he says, "Why did you call me Marc?" That line is actually from the Jeff Lemire run, where we got to see the shifting back and forth between characters when he's talking to the main lady characters in some of the comics that they seem to have gotten away from because she was more of the damsel in distress. Also, if you look at the phone that he's going through, and it's all of it's Layla, which seems to be a new character who might be a combination of other characters, but there's one Duchamp,
yes.
John Duchamp, which is the last name of the gadget guy in the comics, named Frenchie. And which really tied into when Moon Knight was more of a Batman character, and he was this rich guy that had moon-shaped gadgets, and Frenchie would always create those gadgets. So he was sort of like the Bond's Q of the Moon Knight universe.
Yeah, he was also a little bit of Alfred too, because he would fly the helicopter and be kind of he did a variety of things. But yeah, Frenchie was he was also a badass too.
So we'll see how that comes into play in this series, how they what they do with that character. Now, one quick little thing, if you pay attention to the scene where he goes into the elevator, if you look to the right, there's a flaming skull sticker.
Oh, nice.
So which is possibly reference to Ghost Rider, which was part of a group called Midnight Suns that had Moonlight part of, which a lot of people think that we're going to build it that way. Maybe have a combination of some of the characters in the Marvel universe. So I guess we'll see how that plays out. Of course, we talked about the Khonshu, this really cool character. The visual representation of that definitely seems to be pulled from the 2014 Warren Ellis run. So that's really cool. I mean, I've seen pictures of it. It's pretty with the long skull. It's a really, I think that one scene where the skull comes to the screen, I kind of wish I was watching this in 3D because that would have been scary. The big skull going out over the audience. I think for me, one of the coolest things, especially after, if for those people who saw Last Night in Soho, there's a lot of use of reflective surfaces in this episode to show the split personalities. And I think one of the coolest shots is the one that you don't realize it's an upside down shot until the very end, because it's when he's talking to the performer and you see a leaf drop in the puddle, and you realize you've been looking at an upside down puddle the whole time. And there's really a lot of really cool stuff with like what they call, I think it's called an infinity mirror or whatever. There's a lot of those type of things, especially in the bathroom.
A couple times, yeah, and the elevator too, right? And
there's one time where Marc Spector version of him shows up inside of a moon-shaped mirror. Yeah. So there's a lot of really cool use of mirrors and how he's sort of reflected in different reflective surfaces that really works well for that character. Also, that living statue performer, if you look in the credits, his name was Crawley.
Yeah.
Who I think Crawley Bertrand, or Bertrand Crawley. And he was a street informant in the comics. So we'll see how that plays out, if he's going to be, if he's just going to be sitting there frozen in future episodes, or if he's actually going to contribute, Also, when he the main thing that happens in movies where they try to hide from people, they usually put on sunglasses or throw up a hood.
He does
and when he throws up a hood, it's a white hood, so it's very even his clothing is kind of reflective of his Moon Knight personality. Also, when he there's a part where he's got the scarab that Ethan Hawke's character was trying to get. In the comics, the scarabs were dart weapons. So I don't know if that's gonna if we're gonna find out if that's a dart weapon or not. But again, scarabs were in part were used more as weapons. So, but they've changed a little bit. Of course, you mentioned F. Murray Abraham is the voice of the moon god Khonshu, he's almost like the Venom voice. And actually, he starred with Oscar Isaac in a movie called Inside Llewellyn Davis. So it's a reunion between those two. But anyway, that's a few of the Easter eggs that I found. Not as many because it's not really connected.
No, not yet.
Some people are finding deeper meanings. I think New Rockstars had connected something to do with possibly Black Panther or something, but again, it's a little bit too early. But yeah, I think that's what I love about it. It's like it's trying to be its own thing before it starts including other people and stuff. So you have those little bits and pieces, but we're just focusing on this one dude, and that's cool to me.
I like that.
I think the best way to handle it is to let Moon Knight have its own story without really forcing anything else. And at the very end, do what they did in Iron Man, where it's like Nick Fury shows up, but instead of Nick Fury, it could be Daredevil, or it could be Ghost Rider or something like that, if they wanted to go down that route.
They might. I'm sure we'll get some kind of interesting stinger at the last episode. There's 6 episodes, so that'd be fun. How do we want to dive into talking about this? Because Slattman, you start off. You said there were things you wanted to talk about, but if you talked about them, it'd be spoilers. So jump in and give us those.
So one thing that really impressed me, and I know Christopher G. Moore, you will probably agree with me because you are very passionate about this, is that one thing that I found very fascinating, but also I'm cheering and just really happy that they did this, is a lot of this was visual storytelling as opposed to explaining it through words, through dialogue. You saw it was showing instead of telling, and they did such a good job of doing that throughout just the whole episode. And that's, I find that so fascinating, because on one hand you have explaining the that he has DID and everything that he does to prevent it, and you can kind of connect the dots from everything just by watching it, and but then you also have the visual storytelling of when he kind of goes in and out during that chase sequence, and you can connect the dots as to what happened, but you don't see it. But they don't just go, but you don't have a dude that's saying he just shot him, they don't.
Right.
It's just it's just there. You see it, it's inferred. And they do that throughout the entire episode, though.
There's one time they do it, but they do it, but it's actually used as a joke. And it's like, did he really just throw the gun?
Yeah.
It's like, but it was used as a joke, so that works.
But he threw the gun on screen, so
that's true. That's true.
But I especially for setup and explaining the character, I thought they did a really good job of explaining Moon Knight, or this character's hook, what makes him unique, without really going into his mom and dad, Martha and Al, or
no Marthas.
It's without having a huge exposition dump or anything, and I just, it's refreshing to see.
Yeah, they handled it really well without actually ever stating what's going on with it. Right? Mm-hmm. They never flat out said that he has multiple personalities. They just had him show up in mirrors, or in his head, right? And even our other characters know it, right? Or at least one, because Arthur goes up and says, "You hear that voice in your head, don't you?" And he knows something. So there's some great things. The moment when he goes, "There's chaos in you," is really a strong moment too, to kind of show that, kind of reinforce that whole idea that this character is, kind of got a lot of things going on.
Well, there's a whole. There's that whole scene before the jackal type creature attacks, where he's walking by this glass case, and you see two different characters in the reflection that move differently than him. And also there's a scene where there's a statue that's half a face that
he goes right up to it,
lines up. Yeah. And so things like that, I think, for me, just visually, it just looked kind of cool, like the puddle scene, or any of the things there's one scene where you see multiple reflections in some mirrors, because you have those three-way mirror type things.
Well, when he wakes up from that nightmare and he looks back in the mirror, there's it's kind of like these half shadowed reflections of him, and there's three versions of him in the mirror. So exactly right. So.
Well, even when there's the point where he's talking to the little girl and he's kind of framed within the glass case. So there's because he's basically got this sort of Egyptian moon god or whatever inside of him. So it's kind of interesting just how they use visual things to sort of sell that, to where, they don't have to tell you these specific things. You just it comes out within the interactions, or the actions that happen, that he wakes up in the midst of.
And the fact that when he wakes up, what we see in his reaction, and not only his reaction, but everybody else around. The first time he comes to, and he's got the bloody scarab in his hand. We get more blood in this scene than we get in all of Morbius.
The only thing I was thinking, I was like, so what are they gonna change all the blood and stuff?
Oh, because they did that
a month after this, like they did Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
I think they will.
I was that whole scene where he's got all these bloody bodies. I was like, whoa, they're not playing with this this series.
But that scene establishes that this other character knows what the hell he's doing, right? Mm-hmm. And that gives you, it was without telling us, right? They just show us. He phases out, he fades back in, and he's taking care of business, and then everybody's kind of shocked, even the Arthur character, when he comes hobbling up. So I really like that a lot.
And then interactions, just the way it's written too. Like early on when I don't remember her name, but the tour guide that he was supposed to have a date with like comes up and he's just like, we have a date? And it's like you can kind of tell that it's like, you know, he's not the one that was in charge.
Yep. Yeah, because I would suspect that many people are coming into this not knowing that, you know, Marc is Marc Spector. I mean, because do they say Marc Spector ever? I don't think they do. They just call him Marc, right?
I don't think they say last name.
Yeah, they do say for Stephen Grant, and then, you know, with a V, he makes sure to point out. Yeah, so I'm excited. Do they establish enough conflict for this show to keep going forward? I mean, it is just the first episode. First episodes are usually just laying the groundwork, which I think this show does, you know, really, really well. But do we get a sense of conflict and purpose for this show and character? Christopher G. Moore.
Well, yeah. I mean, Ethan Hawke is the Belloc to his Indiana Jones. You know?
Very good.
Once again, Dr. Jones, you don't have a scarab that I cannot repossess or something like that. It's I think we already sort of set up that Ethan Hawke has some kind of nefarious purpose that he's trying to get the scarab to probably possibly release, you know, because I think evidently he's probably got voices inside of him probably instructed him to do things or something, you know, I don't know. But I mean, that's what we're trying to figure out. It's like, what is his purpose? What's he going to do with his scarab? I think we kind of see a little bit of that in some of the extra little scenes and snippets that we've seen. Cause there's a scene where, well, there's a scene on YouTube that kind of showed that where he released something. So yeah, it'd be kind of interesting to see, like, cause you know, he's, you know, he wants that scarab.
He's got some supernatural stuff going on because he has the
has that judgment thing.
The scales are tattooed and they move, and they either, you know, because that's the
heads of crocodiles too.
Right, the heads of crocodiles. There's a lot of later gators and crocodiles and stuff going on. That the crocodile head on his
well, the Amit
is a crocodile head too.
Thing is a crocodile head with like I forgot what the other element is. But yeah, so yeah, it's, I mean, that's the thing. They've kind of set up and we're just sort of like, oh, what's going to happen next type of thing. So I don't think we necessarily have to have a great amount of information for it to make sense, or it's just mainly trying to see, oh, what's going to happen next. And, you know, how he's going to have to sort of gather himself together with all these different personalities to sort of figure out how to fight this, you know. I mean, and also something to pay attention to, like there's that scene where he's like trying to stay up all night and he's trying to solve the Rubik's Cube. If you see the part where he wakes up, the Rubik's Cube's solved right now.
Solved, yep, I saw that. Yeah. Yep. All right, well, let's go ahead and get into our final thoughts. Our score, 1 to 5, and our favorite scene, Slattman, if you would, start us off.
Yeah. So I think for a new not a new IP, but a new IP in the MCU.
It is.
New IP in the MCU on Disney Plus, not having a movie, not having any major tie-ins to any other MCU property so far. It's solid. It's a great first episode. It's a great establishing episode for this character. They do a very good job with writing around this character, and they don't act like the audience is dumb.
I like that. Yes,
which I think is the best way to tell any story, but specifically a story like this, where it has some more complicated things than good guy fight bad guy. And it's setting up some really cool, you know, good guy fight bad guy, but you know, it's also setting up, you know, is good guy really good guy? And then it's also setting up, you know, good guy must fight other good guy because inner conflict, and it's just it's so cool. You know, and they do a really good job with the Oscar Isaac specifically does a really good job portraying the different personalities, and I cannot wait to see. I can't wait to see the next couple episodes to see him act with himself.
Well, okay, so his brother is a body double. So in the mirrors, like there's a couple scenes where when he first gets the costume on, he all the reflections do the same thing, but he's the only one that gets the costume on it. But the other ones are his brother. So
I assumed that was just CGI. Like
yeah. But yeah, they actually brought his brother on to do.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and they probably did do a little CGI, but it helps, right, to have a person there to do it. So
yeah, but yeah, I just a great first episode. A very good introduction to a rather complicated character that is not well known. And if more people start reading Moon Knight comics or get into it because of just this first episode, then I think it's a huge success.
Thinking like a Marvel editor there, yes.
Yeah. Also, please, Ghost Rider, Daredevil, Elektra, just slide those in after this.
Werewolf by Night.
Yeah, Werewolf by Night. Like all of these characters, just please, Marvel. I'm gonna give this one a 4. I don't want to start off with a 5 because that implies that it can't go up. But I really think, based on the strength of this first episode, it can get better as we stick with these characters more, as we learn more about the motives behind Ethan Hawke. It can get better. The action can get better. The characters can be awesome, more awesome. So I want to give it a 4.25 in order to give it room to grow.
There you go. I like that.
So, and my favorite scene is it's probably the chase scene with the cupcake fan.
Oh man, that is awesome.
Yeah, I really liked, even though there wasn't like physical, like character on character acting with that, I love the way that Oscar Isaac plays talking to himself, basically, or his other personality through that, and just the time zips, and just it's such a creative action scene.
It is very good. Yeah, you might have stolen my favorite. All right, Christopher G. Morser, what is your final thoughts? Your score, 1 to 5, and your favorite scene in that episode 1.
I think it's a really great start for the series. I think it's it definitely feels a little bit of a departure from some of the other Marvel stuff and how they started it. It definitely doesn't seem to follow the normal formula, and I like that. And I think for me, going into this not really having as much information about how it's going to play out, it's kind of interesting. And just having a character who's a little bit different than some of the characters we've seen before, who's not so much. I know sometimes we have characters that are not as much as in control, but this seems kind of interesting. It's like having it's almost like having the different characters from like a normal action movie, but one person. It's like it's like having one of the Ghostbusters in the same body as the nerdy accountant from Ghostbusters, and them having to deal with stuff. And that's kind of interesting because that car chase scene, I was anxious because I can't imagine just waking up and realizing you're driving backwards and the people are shooting at you. I think you'd have to change my pants. So I think it's got some really fun things, and I think Oscar Isaac, I think I think people were making fun of his sort of Cockney type accent, but we realize it's more just a result of his mental disorder. So, but I think he's doing a really great job with it, and just his physicality. Because it kind of reminds me of what they did like with the Venom film, where he can't control his what his body's doing.
Yes.
And it kind of made me wish that he played. he played in the Venom movie. But yeah, it's a fun film. It's got, I mean, a fun start of the series. I think Ethan Hawke is definitely starting off as a really cool baddie. It just makes me, I'm kind of interested to see where it goes from here as we start get introduced to more characters. I guess right now I'm just more excited to see the Mr. Knight character.
Yeah, I want to see him too.
I think my only critique is some of the special effects don't seem to be on the same par as previous Marvel shows for some reason. Kind of stood out to me. Certain scenes kind of seemed a little bit unfinished or kind of stuck out like a sore thumb. That was my main issue with it. So I'll give it a 4 out of 5. I think it's a really good start to the series, but I'm sure now that we've sort of got the with them taking off with this first episode, it's just going to get crazier and more fun as it goes along, because visually they're having a lot of fun with the visuals in this, and so can't wait to see what they do next. As for favorite scene, it's got to be the scene where he when he's waiting for the girl at dinner and he realizes that he's the worst horrors that anybody could have is realize I just missed the whole weekend.
I know.
And just sort of like when it finally hits him that he can't explain where he's been or what's happened, and he's vegan, but he's like, he just orders a steak, and just his heartbroken how he expresses his heartbrokenness in that scene is heartbreaking to watch, and maybe a little bit teary-eyed just watching, because I just feel so sad for him, because you realize how he was really looking forward to that, because he doesn't seem to have any control over things, and he realizes how out of control his life is, to where he's missed a whole weekend and he can't account for it.
Yeah, it's like no, it's Sunday, really?
And he's given up. Reaction. And then he ends up, like a lot of those romantic movie tropes where he just eats like a whole box of chocolates, and he even sprinkles some. And so, but yeah, I found that to be very, as someone that's had a good amount of heartbreak in my life and been let down by people and rejected, that was really just when you just given up, you're like, oh, I can't explain it anymore. So yeah, that's my favorite scene. Yeah,
I did like that scene. It's very emotionally powerful too. Yeah, very much so. So I told you, I like Moon Knight. That's his first appearance in Werewolf by Night 32. That might be the comic that you get.
I think that's the comic. Yeah,
which is his first appearance, and then of course he got his own title. And Bill Sienkiewicz came on to do this, and he'd done a few of the comics in backup of Hulk magazine. Not the comic, but a actual Hulk magazine, and then it kind of grew into being its own series after that. And he really gave Moon Knight a very certain kind of spin to it that has kind of kept with the character, although they've tried to change him up. They've given him armor over time. They've given him the Mr. Knight. He's even, he's been part of the Avengers, been part of the Defender. He's all over the place. So it'd be interesting to see what they do. Anyway, for bringing this character to light, the only thing this show missed was having Werewolf by Night in it. But hey, I can wait. I know we're getting a Werewolf by Night. I think we're getting a Halloween special. Werewolf by Night is one of my favorite characters. I'm a Wolfman Werewolf fan, so always loved him. And Ghost Rider too, somebody mentioned. So all these characters, I am so excited to have these coming in. I thought they did a great job bringing Moon Knight and Stephen Grant. We still really don't know Marc Spector. I mean, we get a shot of him in the mirror, but we haven't really gotten Marc Spector on the screen. And I can't wait to see what that is. And of course, Mr. Knight will be interesting to see too. And more of Khonshu and whatever is going on with Arthur, the bad guy. And what is the name of the god he's got? I had it in my head earlier. Emmett, yes. So he's got a connection with that character. I imagine he's got voices in his head from that one. I have a feeling there's going to be a face-to-face with these two these two guys. And I have a feeling, I mean, they make references to the Ennead, and I have a feeling that wasn't by accident, that they're trying to lay down some groundwork for something.
Well, some people are saying it might be connected to Thor: Love and Thunder because they have Gore the God Butcher. And so when you're dealing with gods in this, that might be the reason why we haven't seen a trailer yet, because it may connect to what's happening in this series.
Well, that would be a lame answer for it. Doing a Thor trailer. No, the Thor trailer is because we haven't gotten.
Well, I mean, that's clearly what people have said, that they might have some connection to that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But anyway, I loved it. Yeah, I'm going to give it a 4.5 because I'm waiting for it to really get into all the meat of the story to go full 5 on this. And it may waver a bit before it gets there because they really have a lot of groundwork still to do to get this character up and running. But I'm excited, and I loved Oscar Isaac's performance in this. I thought he was fantastic. And in context, okay, so I thought that accent was like, what is going on? But in context of the story, it totally makes sense. It totally plays right. It totally feels the character. It feels like, well, that's a perfect call. It just feels out of context in the trailers. No, it's perfect. And my favorite scenes is a couple of them all at once, but I'm just going to pick the culmination of them as my favorite scene is when he wakes up and he does, not knowing where he is, right? Or knowing where he is, but was it a dream? There's one time he wakes up in the Alps or something. I don't know where the hell it was. It was in the mountains somewhere, and and it was just so well done, and it looked so painful. And his reaction to it was great. And he turns around, and he waves at the people getting ready to shoot him. And then when he wakes up again later in his apartment after the logs come down and crush all those bad guys, which what the hell was that all about? I don't care. It was awesome. But he acts, I don't know if you guys noticed, but he's acting with his eyes. I mean, not just like, oh, sad eyes. I mean, he's got this weird, like one eye is squinty and one eye is not kind of thing going on that just really brings the character together visually. Just subtle little thing like that. And I love this performance.
Yeah, he did a really great job. And I think they really worked at trying to make him look tired and stuff. Although I think they had some people's complaints. There's people who thirst after him. They're like, I just don't believe he would be all alone. There's people who thirst after Oscar Isaac, but that's
Yeah. Well, I could. Yeah. I mean, but also what you gotta know is that character probably hasn't been around that long.
Yeah.
He just doesn't know it because he definitely is not talking to his mother. On the phone.
Yeah. Well, we know that, but we
got to find out who he's talking to, right?
But I'm wondering if is each one of the characters? I mean, is Mr. Knight? Is he more one of the personalities? Is he
He's considered a consultant. It's really weird. It's really weird. We'll get to it. Let's save that for when he shows up. Okay.
Because I feel like he feels like he'd be the suave one that would ask someone out on the date.
Yep. That might be another hour of conversation. We've officially gone longer than the episode, I think. All right, let's wrap this up. That's our review of Moon Knight episode 1. We hope you enjoyed it. We're looking forward to episode 2 coming Wednesday this week. Can't wait. 6 episodes in are to go, our total. So 5 more to go. I'm just all over the place with this, but follow me. We'll get there. Christopher, Slattman, thank you for joining me. Had a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It's always a pleasure.
Can't wait to talk about the next episode.
No, can't wait.
And Mr. Knight.
Mr. Knight.
Yeah, that's what I'm excited about.
But okay.
Yeah. I want to dress up as Mr. Knight.
There's so much I can say about there's some character. Anyway, let's say good night.
Cheerio.
Good night.
Good night.